No wife, no kids, no life. That's what my brother's family declared about me at Christmas, right before admitting they'd borrowed my inheritance. They all nodded like it was a fact. I smiled, stood up, and walked out. 3 days later, my voicemail was full of their desperate pleas. I never thought I'd be posting here, but after what happened during our family Christmas, I need to get this off my chest. Fair warning, this is long. I'm still trying to process all of it. You know that moment when you walk into a room and everything just stops? Everyone suddenly goes quiet? That's how my Christmas morning started. I arrived at my mom's house at 10 a.m., exactly the time she asked me to come. But apparently everyone else had already been there for hours. The tree was surrounded by opened gifts. The breakfast dishes were being cleared away, and my nephew Christian was already deep into his new video games. The first red flag. They didn't wait. Even though Mom specifically said 10, it was our first Christmas without Dad. He passed in October, so yeah, everything already felt off. Mom hugged me tightly, but there was something strained behind her smile. My sister-in-law, Gabriella, barely looked up from her phone and muttered, "Oh, you made it," like I was some distant relative who crashed the party. I set my gifts by the tree, trying to ignore the awkwardness. Christian, bless him, was actually excited to see me. He ran over to show off his new gaming setup. That kid's always been the bright spot in our family. Then my brother Andrew cut in. "Don't bother Uncle Dominic. He probably doesn't understand that stuff anyway, too busy with whatever it is he does." The dig wasn't subtle. I work remotely for a tech company while traveling. It's a life I built intentionally. Dad always supported my choices, even if they didn't line up with the traditional path. But since he passed, the comments have gotten worse, sharper, more pointed. It all started unraveling during lunch. Mom made Dad's classic Christmas roast for the first time since he passed, and the table was uncomfortably quiet. Then Gabriella broke the silence. "So, Dominic, any special someone in your life yet? You know, at your age, you really should be thinking about settling down. Christian needs cousins, you know." Before I could even respond, Andrew jumped in. "Oh, he's too busy living the bachelor life. No wife, no kids, no real life, right?" He laughed, but it had an edge. And the way everyone else either nodded or looked away told me one thing. This wasn't the first time they'd had this conversation about me. I kept my cool and focused on my food. "My life's actually pretty full," I said. "I'm happy with my choices." "Full of what?" Gabriella pressed, setting her fork down. "Working behind a screen? Traveling to empty hotel rooms? That's not living, that's existing. You're wasting your potential. Your father would have wanted—" "Don't." My voice came out sharper than I expected. "Don't tell me what Dad would have wanted. You could cut the tension with a knife." Mom tried to change the subject, asked about New Year's plans, but Andrew wasn't done. "You know what? No, we need to talk about this." He leaned in, lowering his voice like he was dropping some profound truth. "The will reading is next week. And we need to be realistic. You've got all this money saved up, no responsibilities, while we're trying to give Christian the best life possible. It's not fair." That's when I noticed Mom's face. Guilt. She wouldn't look me in the eyes. "What do you mean, realistic?" I asked, but I was already putting the pieces together. Gabriella chimed in, her voice all syrupy. "We've had some big expenses. Christian's private school, house renovations. Your dad promised he'd help before he, you know. We had to borrow against what we knew was coming from the will." My stomach dropped. "Borrow? From where?" Silence. Then Mom finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Your portion, honey. They needed it. You have so much saved already, and they have a family to think about." It felt like a punch to the gut. "You took my inheritance without asking?" "Borrowed," Andrew said, like that word made it okay. "And honestly, what were you even going to do with it?" You're just a waste of space in this family. No real connections. No one depending on you. Just floating through life while the rest of us deal with real responsibilities. They all nodded. Even Mom, even though it looked like it physically hurt her to do it. The only person who looked uncomfortable was Christian. He'd stopped, eating, just staring at his plate. I stood up slowly. My chair scraped against the floor. The room went quiet again. Everyone was probably waiting for me to explode. Instead, I just smiled. Thanks for lunch, Mom. I need to go. Oh, don't be dramatic, Gabriella started, but I was already walking out. Behind me, I heard Andrew mutter something about me always running away from confrontation. I drove home in a daze. By the time I walked into my apartment, my phone was lighting up. Messages from Mom saying we needed to talk as a family. One from Andrew telling me to man up and face reality. I haven't responded. Instead, I called Dad's lawyer and left a message. Tomorrow, I'm going to find out exactly what they've done and what they mean by borrowing. The worst part? I keep thinking about the last real conversation I had with Dad, just a week before he passed. He made me promise two things: take care of the family and stand your ground. At the time, I thought it was just the meds talking. Now, I'm starting to wonder if he knew. I should have known something was off the moment I pulled into Mom's driveway this morning. There were 3 extra cars. Andrew didn't just bring Gabriella, he brought reinforcements. Aunt Linda, Uncle Pete, and a family friend who just happens to be a financial advisor. They were all seated in the living room like some kind of intervention panel. The first words out of Andrew's mouth? Good, you're here. Now we can discuss how to fix the mess you're making of this family. I almost laughed. This was their play? Mom hovered in the kitchen doorway, already clutching a tissue. Gabriella sat perfectly poised on the couch, hair and makeup done like she was heading to a business meeting, not a family confrontation. Christian was nowhere to be seen, probably sent to a friend's house to avoid the drama. I stayed standing. Before we begin, I said, pulling a folder from my bag, I'd like to share something Dad left behind. The room shifted. A flicker of confusion on Gabriella's face, a twitch in Andrew's jaw. I handed Mr. Wilson's letter to Aunt Linda. It's a copy, I added. The original is with Dad's lawyer. The silence was heavy while she read. When she passed it to Uncle Pete, her expression had changed from concern to something closer to shame. You forged my signature on 6 separate documents, I said to Andrew. $285,000 in unauthorized loans, all withdrawn from my trust. Without consent. Gabriella opened her mouth, but I held up a USB drive. This contains everything: emails, bank records, loan applications, forged signatures. Oh, and a letter from Dad. The one where he predicted you'd try something like this. Andrew snapped. Oh, come on. You don't even need the money. You're off gallivanting around the world while we're here struggling to build a life for our son. Dad always said families should take care of each other. I locked eyes with him. Funny. I don't remember take care of each other meaning steal from each other. Gabriella's voice cracked then. We were desperate. The school is threatening to expel Christian. The house, you should have talked to me, I said. Not lied, not forged documents, and definitely not ambushed me on Christmas with a guilt trip wrapped in a roast dinner. Aunt Linda looked at Gabriella. You took money from your own family and tried to hide it? That's when Mom finally spoke, softly. I didn't know it went that far. I thought it was just temporary. I thought Dominic would understand. I do understand, I said. More than any of you give me credit for. That's why Dad left me in charge of the repayment plan. Andrew's face twisted. What? I nodded. Read the amended will. Dad set conditions. Any money taken must be repaid before anyone sees the rest of their inheritance. and he left me in charge of enforcing that. You don't get to control this, Andrew growled. You're not the parent. No, I said. But I am the one Dad trusted to handle this like an adult. That's when Christian walked in. He must have been listening from the hallway. Uncle Dom, he said. You came. His voice broke something in me. He was the only innocent one in all of this. I'm sorry about what they said, he added quietly. I know you're not a waste. Andrew started to scold him, but I cut in. He's fine. He's being more mature than the rest of you combined. I turned back to the room. This isn't about revenge. I'm not here to punish anyone. But there will be consequences. You don't get to violate someone's trust and then ask for understanding when you're caught. Gabriella started crying. Andrew stood in stunned silence. The family advisor cleared his throat and asked if he could see the documents. I handed him the second copy. Mom asked if I'd stay for lunch. I told her maybe another day. Today wasn't for small talk and casseroles. As I walked out, Christian followed me to the door. Will you still come around? He asked. I knelt down so we were eye level. Yeah, buddy. I will. And next Christmas. We'll open presents together, okay? He smiled. As I drove home, I thought about Dad's letter again. The part where he said, they'll try to use guilt. They'll call you selfish. Remember, real responsibility isn't about giving in. It's about making tough choices for the right reasons. I think today I finally understood what he meant. There will be more conversations, more paperwork, more fallout. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm not carrying the weight of this family's dysfunction alone. Dad trusted me to do the hard thing, and I did. I took Dad's old armchair, the one by the window. Something about sitting in his spot gave me strength. I didn't say anything, just waited. Andrew's always hated silence. It makes him nervous. Sure enough, he started talking first. We've been discussing things, he said, gesturing around the room, and we think you're not seeing the bigger picture. Dad's will, it's creating unnecessary strain. We have a proposal. Their financial advisor friend pulled out a stack of papers. That's when I noticed the logo, the same firm that manages the mortgage on Mom's house. Interesting. The proposal was exactly what you'd expect from people used to manipulating others with polite language. They wanted to restructure the inheritance, which basically meant they'd get immediate access to their full portions, plus temporary control over my share to manage family assets more efficiently. In return, they'd promised to repay the stolen funds, starting in 5 years. I let them finish. Then I pulled out Dad's ledger. Before we go further, I said, flipping to a marked page, let's talk about the mountain view. Property? The room went dead quiet. Aunt Linda suddenly found her coffee very interesting. For those asking, Mountain View was Dad's rental property, 3 fully paid-off units that brought in steady income. He'd left it to Mom in the will, or so we thought. That's not relevant, Andrew said, way too quickly. I held up the page. Really? Because according to this, you took out a second mortgage on it 8 months ago. You used Mom's power of attorney while Dad was in the hospital. Then I looked at Mom. Did you know about that? Her tissue fell to the floor. What is he talking about? It was temporary, Gabriella blurted. We needed capital for an investment opportunity. It's under control. I turned to their advisor friend. Is that why the property is in pre-foreclosure? That's when Mom broke. Not soft tears, real crying. The kind that makes a room shrink. Your father and I bought those units when we first got married. It was our retirement plan. Andrew turned to me, furious. You had no right to go digging into private family matters. Private? Like forging my signature on 6-figure loans? Like opening 3 credit cards in Mom's name? Silence. The advisor started quietly packing up his papers. Andrew's voice was desperate now. That's different. We were protecting The family's interests. You wouldn't understand. You've never had real responsibilities. You just travel around while we've lost over $500,000 in online trading. I cut in. Borrowed against every asset you could. Maxed out Christian's college fund. Gabriella stood up, shouting now. You sanctimonious little... What do you even have? Empty apartments? Instagram photos of places nobody cares about? I stayed. Calm. I have no debt, and I have Dad's trust. That's when we all heard it. A voice from the stairs. Is it true about my college fund? Everyone turned. Christian was sitting on the middle step holding his phone. He'd been listening the entire time. Honey, go to your room, Gabriella started, but he cut her off. I recorded everything. His voice trembled. Uncle Dom wasn't lying. You did steal. The next few minutes were chaos. Gabriella crying, Andrew yelling, Mom sobbing about Mountain View. Aunt Linda and Uncle Pete slipped out during the shouting. The financial advisor handed me his card before leaving. Turns out, he'd been trying to warn the family about Andrew's schemes for months. Christian came and sat next to me. He didn't say a word, just quietly took the armrest of Dad's chair. It was such a small gesture, but it meant everything. Finally, when the yelling had run dry, I stood up and pulled out the final document. Dad's amended will, complete with repayment conditions. Here's what's going to happen. Mountain View goes into trust management immediately to stop the foreclosure. All credit cards in Mom's name are canceled. Christian's remaining college fund gets moved into a locked account. Only he can access it at 18. And Andrew and Gabriella start mandatory financial counseling next week. Andrew sneered. Or what? Or, I said calmly, I take this folder of forged documents to the police. Silence. Mom finally spoke, her voice raw from crying. The units, can they be saved? Yes, I said. Dad left enough in the estate to cover it, but they have to agree to the terms, all of them. I handed out copies of the repayment plan. As they read in stunned silence, my phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Wilson. Your father would be proud. Meeting tomorrow to finalize everything. Before anyone could protest again, Christian spoke up. Dad, just sign it, please. If you don't, I'll have to show everyone at school what you really did. Andrew's face went pale. The recording. Gabriella signed first. Andrew followed, his hand shaking. Rage, shame, maybe both. As I drove home, the messages started flooding in. Threats from Andrew, tearful apologies from Mom, a long text from Christian, asking if he could stay with me for a few days until things calmed down. Tomorrow we meet with Mr. Wilson to make it all official, but I know this isn't over. Andrew's too proud, Gabriella's too desperate, and there's 20 years of family dysfunction to unravel. But for the first time, the truth isn't buried. It's right out in the open, and there's no going back.